Welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, hosted by ECHO and brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine. In this live episode from the ECHO Louisville 2025 conference, we sit down with U.S. Army pilot and ECHO safety team member Sean Gavin from the New York Air National Guard. Together, we explore the art of briefing and debriefing, or more particularly, what makes them effective, and also how humility can drive accountability and why learning from every mission, win or loss, matters. There are so many lessons to be learned from each mission, and it's important to have open and honest conversations about each flight. Being able to highlight the good, the bad, or indifferent can really help flight crews continue to grow and create a safer environment. From military precision to civilian application, this episode dives into communication, culture, and the leadership mindset that helps air crews stay safe and growing. So we hope you enjoyed this episode, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you to our sponsors, Metro Aviation, Night Flight Concepts, Airbus.
Welcome to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine. Produced in partnership with ECHO, Every Coast Helicopter Operations, the Valor Flight Crew podcast promotes the personnel and life-saving equipment behind helicopter air ambulance services. Join hosts Mike Fideli and Blake Schreider for in-depth interviews and expert insights from air medical personnel, pilots, communication specialists, and maintenance crews who play critical roles in airborne emergency response.
Line 1 accepting.
Copy, line 1, gotcha, accepting. You're going to be talking to Red Feather 1 on LCEMS.
Yeah, welcome back to the Valor Flight Crew podcast. I am Blake Schreider. I'm here with Mike Fideli.
How are you, sir?
My favorite co-host.
Like I said, it better be your only one.
That's it.
We got something to talk about.
Well, we're here. We are live at ECHO Louisville 2025. And we've got a great podcast show today. We've got Sean Gavin joining us today.
Morning, fellas. Thanks for having me.
How are you, Sean?
Doing well. Yourself?
How's the conference been going for you?
It's great. I'm a big bourbon fan, so it didn't take much to get into Louisville. But ECHO conference is always a good time every year.
Came to the right place to check out the sights and sounds.
Exactly.
May or may not have come down a few days early just to do a couple extra tours on the way. Because I knew once we got to the conference, it was going to be crazy busy. So
yeah, for sure.
I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to do some of that other stuff.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, I think Mike loaded up pretty good.
Shh! Don't tell too many people.
Well, we've got a great show today. So, Sean, again, thank you so much for being here. So, we just want to kind of start. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background, maybe how you've come up in this in the world of aviation, and how you got involved with ECHO?
Always knew ever since I was young I wanted to fly, just didn't know who I wanted to fly for or exactly what. So that kind of worked itself out through high school and then college. There was no ROTC where I went to for college, where there was an Army ROTC. So my plan was, hey, I'll fly Army helicopters for a bit and then figure out where I want to go next. And through a couple different things, I found out about opportunities in the Air National Guard. Went through that process, interviewed at a whole bunch of places, and then got picked up by the New York Air National Guard to fly HH-60s with the 101st Rescue Squadron.
Awesome.
I was also, at the same time, I was doing ground EMS up in New York State when I was home from college, and then kind of in that break between graduating and going to pilot training. So actually, one of your previous guests, Jason Baslow.
Oh, yeah.
We never worked directly together, but I remember a couple of calls
agency.
that he was on. He and I both worked for Mobile Life.
Very nice.
Back in the day in New York, and then Town of Wallkill EMS as well.
Small world, right?
Yeah.
I've
always been involved in
very small world.
The emergency services kind of thing. My dad was FDNY for 25 years.
Oh, wow.
So big background in that, and so being able to kind of mesh the aviation side of things with the emergency services was kind of where I always kind of saw things going.
And so now you've been involved with ECHO for a couple years now. What are your roles within the ECHO family?
Yeah, so I went to my first conference in 2022. It was in Austin. 2023 I couldn't get to. I was deployed. And so right now I'm part of the safety team, and then they just started a military team as well. So we are small but mighty.
Yes.
Approximately, I think, 3-4 members, I think, on the military side of the house. But it's
all it takes
another
to get it
aspect
started,
that we're
all it
growing.
takes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how safety started.
That's how ECHO started.
Yeah. 3 people.
Yeah, exactly. So we're certainly happy to have you come and join us today. I think it's going to be a really interesting discussion. I think that, when we talk about briefing and debriefing, I feel like a lot of times we end up just going through the motions, and we aren't really like taking the necessary steps to make sure that we're having effective briefs and then extremely effective, debriefs. And I think even when something even goes well, when it goes perfect, there's still something that can be learned from those situations. And that's why I'm looking forward to having this conversation, because I would love to see where we can get to a more standardized process for what those look like, and really starting to make sure that even on the good calls, we're still taking something positive away from it for next time. So we really appreciate you coming out and joining us for the podcast. I was wondering, before we kind of get into it, can you give us just a little bit of maybe an impactful story, that something that kind of highlights why this is a topic that you're so passionate about? Was there a circumstance or an incident that kind of happened through your career that really highlighted the importance of these type of crucial conversations?
Trying to think of a specific instance. There's been a lot of good briefings and debriefings, and also on the negative side of things. I would say on one of our deployments, we were tasked to, it was very short notice, there was an allied special forces team that had come under attack. Things were really kind of confusing. We made a decision to go ahead and launch. We got to kind of a point, and then the higher authorities kind of told us not necessarily to stand down all the way, but hey, you shall go here and no further. Things were really kind of messed up that night. Unfortunately, one of the members did lose their life. So we came back, we debriefed internally in the squadron, along with some data that the person who was pretty much in charge of all the JTACs, Joint Terminal Attack Controllers in the theater, had compiled a lot of data, because this is something he was very passionate about as well. So we did our own internal debrief. I thought that went really, really well, where we were like, hey, here's things that we did well, here's things that we could do better, and here's things that the larger kind of system that was in place in theater for personnel recovery, or CSAR, probably could have done better at. So our debrief went quite well. There was a larger kind of, because everyone's all spread out, this video teleconference debrief with higher authorities and C2 and other players who were involved that night into the early morning. And that one I thought did not quite go so well. Yeah. Some of our points were well received, others were not well received, and then there was a lot of, well, that person should have done this, and but we didn't have this authority.
All the finger pointing going on.
So that's something that's always kind of, in the back of my mind, and something that I usually relay to people, especially newer guys coming up within the squadron, as to this is why it's important to have these, so that even on nights or early mornings when things don't go really well, at least we can take things away from it.
Absolutely.
If no one else gets anything else out of it, or wants to kind of shift things and say, well, that wasn't really us, that's their call, but at least we can go ahead and try to improve ourselves.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And with your experience in the military, bringing that back over into the civilian world, there's so many hands at stake. So just like you said, you had higher authority, higher people saying you shall go no further than this, and then so many other factors that contributed. There's just as many other contributing factors, whether you're in the military or civilian world, law enforcement. There's all these other things that tie in. And when we do these debriefs, we should all have that buy-in and, like you said, really take away something. And it shouldn't be about the finger pointing.
Right.
We should have the humility to be like, that didn't go well, and this went well. And we can own that, and the thing that we could do is we owe it to not only ourselves, our families, our patients, everybody, to take away from that and learn and not let that mistake, go to waste, and we improve. Yeah. So I think it's important that we just have that humility.
Oh, 100%.
And buy-in.
There was a lot of discussions that were here at the conference this week, and especially our keynote speaker, that kind of harped upon the fact that it's not about saying that you didn't do something well. It's about that this situation didn't go right.
Right.
How do we fix this for next time? And I think that really plays into effective both briefs and debriefs.
Yep.
I mean, and you have to have that humility and the understanding to recognize up front that I'm human. I can make mistakes. I can always figure out how to do things better. But at the same time, the receiver needs to understand that it's not an attack on them.
Right.
As long as it's brought up in a way that is constructive.
Yeah. One of the biggest like ground rules that we have in our community and possibly the Air Force as a whole, I've been in 60s my entire career, is that there's no rank in the debrief.
Right.
So
Right.
everyone is on an equal
Makes
playing
sense,
field,
exactly,
whether it's the newest, special mission aviator, the enlisted guys we have in the back, or, the squadron commander, who's flying. Everyone's on an equal playing field for the debrief. Now, it doesn't mean that you can go ahead and just throw insults.
Right.
And, there's still a level of, decorum there, but everyone's on that equal playing field.
Right.
Yeah.
We were all keys and pieces of that puzzle
Right.
to make it work or not work.
Yep,
100%.
absolutely.
So we kind of want to get into kind of the gist of the whole podcast here as far as talking about some of these briefs and debriefs. And I think that we can argue that an effective briefing is just as important as effective debriefing. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you think in your practice really makes for an effective pre-mission brief?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on, is it something that's pre-planned out?
Yeah.
Where we have, structured mission briefs.
Sure.
Or is it something that, you're starting a shift for HEMS, air ambulance, law enforcement, and you don't know what's coming down the pike that day.
Right.
We have a similar concept with alert briefs, which are pretty much daily update briefs, when we're deployed overseas or, we're on some sort of short notice for something in the States. And like the alert briefs are pretty much like, hey, here's what's transpired since the last time that you got this brief. Most times overseas, it's 12 hours, 24 hours, depending on the cycles that we're running on. But it's pretty much, hey, like here's significant events that have happened, and then it's a lot of the what people call admin stuff.
Sure.
But you can't skip that stuff,
No,
right?
it's-
I mean, it's vital. So
Right.
like, hey, here's the weather. Here's the the NOTAMs. Anything else that's kind of going on. Like, here's the status of all of our people that we are supporting in the region or people that support us. Are they green, yellow, red, whatever status? You kind of make that as to weather, maintenance, crew availability, things like that. So even if it's just that and you have no idea what's coming down the pike during that day, that's important.
Yeah.
And we're able to lean on in our community our SOPs or our standard operating procedures. So otherwise, unless there's something I'm going to do that is outside of those standards, which is obviously allowable to a point, you can modify something to say, hey, we're going to do this non-standard.
Right.
Other than that, I don't need to spend a whole lot of time with my formation or with my crew and go through, hey, if this happens, here's how we're going to work this, because everyone's already on that same page.
Right.
Yeah.
And that almost is like when we try to start off that day. So like I know we start our day with, okay, we do our shift exchange handoff, and then we go see the pilot, and then we do our debrief. Mm-hmm. It's the same routine each and every time.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you found, so like these, I guess my point to this is we do one main brief in the morning, but why don't maybe we inherently do these small little debriefs before we go to each mission, right? So for HIMS, we don't know when the call is going to come in.
Right.
Or maybe that's something that comes up around the day. And I think if we just have that open mind of it's not just we do the one in the morning and I'm good. I know the status of the aircraft. I know the status of maintenance, because that can change.
Right.
Very much
Absolutely.
so. And then with each call that comes in, something's different. So I think if we keep that in the forefront of our mind, like you said, this was the admin stuff. This was what's changed since 12 hours ago. Mm-hmm. But during my next 12-hour hitch, there's a lot of things that could change, weather, things like that. So if we keep that in mind, do you think that would help us as crews to have that buy-in for those debriefs, especially in the morning and then as you go? Yeah,
I think so. I think the more that you can go ahead and involve different people into that brief, the better. Like for our normal flight briefs, for a training sortie or something that's pre-planned, one of the things that's a technique some people will do is they'll go ahead and just not necessarily call out is a bad word, but go ahead and call on individuals and be like, hey, so, Mike or Blake, like during this part of the mission, like here's what I expect you to be doing, or like, hey, during this part of the mission, if you're kind of the expert in that, like tell us what you're thinking, walk us through like what you're going to do. So involving them in that, or if there's something that they're again a specialist in, having them go ahead and cover that part of the brief instead of just one person just standing up there and going on and on and on, which can get old quick. That's a good way to keep people involved. And then if you have new personnel, at the end, instead of just like, hey, does anyone have any questions? Go ahead and ask those people, like, hey, do you understand? Or like, hey, like, do you remember like when we talked about this part of the mission? Right. Like, do you remember what we were doing? Or do you remember, the people that we're talking to on, like whatever frequency? Like, what's their call sign?
Right.
So you go ahead and you check that, like, okay, this is just go whoop. It's like the teacher in Charlie Brown. Wah, 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 wah.
Exactly.
They actually gain something from it.
Yeah. And I think that's a challenge a lot of times. I feel like, every pilot that I've worked with obviously has their own little styles of what they like to do. Like we have the standardized approach that kind of lists, aircraft hours and maintenance schedule and, weather status and those typical things that are standard with each pilot. But then like after we do the main brief with our general crews, then we also have our, individual brief with that particular crew. And everyone likes to do it just a little bit differently. So I think certainly having that engagement in the morning, some of the pilots I've worked with, they've kept it as a brief. Others, it hasn't been so brief.
Right, yeah.
And, I've had ones that have lasted literally up to an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is kind of like, this is crazy. You lost me.
Right.
You lost me.
Long ago.
There's such a fine line to walk. And I think it really depends on like, okay, what are we going out there to do? Is it something pre-planned that's going to be pretty complex, in which case, okay, I might have a lot of stuff to cover here. Right. Or is it an alert brief, a shift change brief, what have you? And I know the people that I'm working with, and we're all from the same organization. So like then I can probably go ahead and compress that.
Right.
One of the things that we do for like training flights, or if there's some sort of pre-planned thing again, is we set out desired learning objectives, or DLOs. Okay. And there's an acronym, and it's modified since I've been in the Air Force as well. We just keep on adding stuff to everything as usual.
There's an acronym for just about everything in the military. So.
Yeah. But the acronym that's used to go ahead and write or come up with an effective DLO is SMART. And so that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and tailored. Now, a lot of it seems like it might be like repetitive. But, specific. So narrowing something down. So instead of, from a pilot side of the house, like, all right, I'm going to perform, an effective LZ recon. Well, what part of that are we focusing on? Like that could encompass a whole variety of different tasks. So narrowing that down, make it something measurable. So instead of like, well, I'm going to fly a stable approach. How are you measuring what a stable approach is? And then like hold yourself to those parameters, or make sure your crew is holding yourself to those parameters. Yeah. Attainable, making sure that for the person's skill level, they're able to go ahead and do that. It's not something that's ridiculous for them. Realistic, so okay, it's something that is in our scope. And then tailored is going ahead and kind of specifically for like instructional things, or if you're an FTO or something like that, going ahead, taking a look at that person's training records and being like, well, hey, what are their strengths and weaknesses have been? So, like, don't go ahead and give them a DLO on something they're already good at.
Right.
Or, like, don't give them an unattainable DLO if they've been struggling with something. Yeah. So that's kind of the acronym. And I like writing DLOs because it gives you something for that debrief to come back and debrief to if nothing else significant happened.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
That really ties a lot of things all together.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you said, that brief can go way long, and you lost me. Like, I don't have enough coffee for this one.
We may all be type A personalities in this industry, but we all have very short attention spans as well.
Yes.
So.
10 seconds.
There's a squirrel, and we're done.
Yeah. But just to keep that at our forefront, and it's like it's ever changing, and so. When I talk about in the morning, we go do our brief. We do our shift change. We go to the office, and then we go to the pilot office. And it's the routine, and it's the same. And I think there's just something to be said about just breaking that up. Mm-hmm. Maybe go brief at the aircraft. Let's go in the kitchen and talk about it. Let's remove barriers, because you get those just those routines. It becomes habit, and then you lose that focus.
Sometimes, and it depends on the ops tempo, we've gone ahead and incorporated kind of at the end of these alert briefs, like some sort of like short academic class. Again, hey, give me like a 5 to 10 minute brief on, is there for us, like a specific threat in the theater? Is there like some sort of new asset that's rotating in that can help us out? And it could be the same thing for, air ambulance crews. Like, hey, we're going to go ahead and talk about this one specific helipad that we don't go to a whole lot. And like, hey, when we're going here, like, what are we thinking? Or,
there's
even
construction everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
even something that's like out of the ordinary. So like,
cranes
hey,
and towers everywhere.
like you said, we're going to go out to the helicopter after this, and we're going to talk like basic like egress, or like emergency aircraft shutdown. If I'm incapacitated as a pilot, you come up front and like, what are you doing with the PCLs, throttles, whatever you call them for the specific aircraft?
But I think obviously the engagement is I think keeping it interesting, keeping it relevant, and keeping it, brief to where our attention spans can handle it. But there's also a lot of personal accountability on each of us as crews. There are many days where I've caught myself thinking like, are you kidding me? Like, I got to go through this. Like, I know this is going to be a long brief. I'm just not feeling this today. But like, you got to like snap out of that and be like, listen, this is all of your lives together. Like, you need to make sure that all of you guys are in this to win this and be active part of that. And so, I don't know, maybe it's just one of those days where I'm not, feeling the best and my frat's a little bit higher than what it should be. but we need to like keep tabs on each other too and make sure that we're all actively participating in those briefs. So I was wondering if you kind of mentioned a little bit before, but are there any unsuccessful debriefs that you really experienced? And how did that affect either you or your crews along the way? Talking about like the after process. So you complete a mission, you're on your way back, and you get back and get all cleaned up, ready to go for the next one. You're doing your debrief afterwards, and a situation where maybe it didn't quite go as well as you would have hoped for, and like what effect that had on either you or your crews to kind of like, how does the rest of the shift go? How does the working with that person in the future go? Like, how did that really affect you guys overall?
Let's see. So there was one instance where we were called out. It was a normal kind of drill weekend, and then we got this call that there's this small aircraft that had gone down offshore. The control tower actually alerted us at the base to that, and so the decision was made, hey, we've already got aircraft turning. We're going to go ahead. I believe the police department was already on scene, both maritime and in the air. Coast Guard was already on scene, maritime. They were sending the helicopter. So lots of people go into this thing. Right. We go out, we do our thing. Unfortunately, the people were deceased. Some of them were still in the aircraft, but we were able to go ahead and direct maritime assets to go ahead and recover a couple of them. So not successful in the overarching mission scheme, but at least we were able to do what we could do out there. Sure. And then when the Coast Guard got on scene, affected the mission handoff to them. So we came back from that, and the Guard members will probably understand this, and Air Ambulance can too, or HEMS. Like, it's getting towards the end of drill weekend. Like, everyone wants to just
it's time to go home.
Let's get out of here. I got to get back to my family, or I got to get back to my other full-time job. So while I remember holding a individual like crew debrief for that, I really wish that there had been like a larger debrief with everyone who had been involved. From like, hey, here's the person who made the decision to launch, which was kind of at like a higher level than we could in our squadron. Right. And it was the right call, thankfully, because I've been through some where we've not been allowed to launch, and that's never good for anyone if it's not explained well. Yeah. But I wish there had been like a larger debrief of everyone who had been involved as to like, hey, like things seem to have gone pretty well, but like I never heard from the maritime perspective, the boats out there, like, hey, could I have done something better for you? Right. Sure. Or can we, set up some training sessions, something like that for next time? So I just feel like that was like a little bit of an opportunity missed from our perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel like, we've all kind of, like you said, we kind of get in that headspace where like, we are just done with this today, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many times do we get back from those calls that go fine and there's really no issues, and everybody's like, you got anything for that? Nope. You got anything for that? Nope. And everybody walks away like that. Like, and that's not the way that it should. Like, we should still be taking that time and being very deliberate and making sure that these opportunities don't go missed, because there certainly can be something, I think, on even all of those good calls. And I know that there's There's been some more structured pilots that I've worked with as far as like there is like a step-by-step process that they go through for those debriefs. And then others are just kind of like, hey, you guys good? Do you need anything? You guys doing all right? I'm going to call the comm center, check in with them. And, we go about our day.
Right.
I don't know how to change that though, like how do you, like it's the personal side of things, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the personal accountability, but I think most of my pilots are actually more disciplined than most of my med crew when it comes to doing some of those things. And I appreciate that for them, like holding me accountable in that moment, because I admit that when I get back, my ADD kicks in and I'm doing 15 other things to get ready for the next mission or getting, everything ready to do charting and all that. So I appreciate that they have that discipline to be able to sit down and have those conversations.
Yeah. I feel it's more than just you get back and like, hey, you guys good? All right.
Right.
See you in the next one, Yeah. And then like even the things that go well, I think we should probably highlight those, just to be like, yeah, this was good because maybe like that's that other little positive reinforcement, that you had. So, Sean, that kind of brings me to, can you give us a time that you had a good positive debrief or something that worked out really well for everybody after?
So we were doing, it was a training sortie back in the States, but it involved, it was like a multi-day kind of thing. So for this particular one, the HC-130s, our fixed-wing C-130 squadron, they went ahead and they had dropped a pararescue team about 3 hours flight time away on this other military facility. So the whole objective is that these guys are going to parachute in. They're going to make their way overland, hike to the survivor or to the objective, and start medical care. And then we are going to come in the next day, pick them up, and so on and so forth, complete the mission. We went out the next day. Weather was pretty awful in the objective area.
Right. Best laid plans,
so,
right?
Yeah. So it's mountainous. I'm instructing somebody who's going through their flight lead upgrade, which is traditionally like one of the toughest or the toughest upgrade for a pilot to go through in our community. But they're making all the right calls. It's like, okay, let's see if we can go in over here because there's no weather reporting right where they're at. And, of course, the PJs, and I feel for them, they're like, hey, what are you guys doing? Hey, come pick us up. And, I think we were about a mile away from where they were, and we had explored all possible options to get in there. And it's just like, guys, it's not going to work out.
Right.
So we go, land, refuel. They eventually drive to the airport, get on the C-130. They're all ticked off, which again, I get it. You've been out there all night. It rained on you, and so we came back the next day and we had a debrief this time with everyone who was involved, which is great. And I was actually able to, because they were again expressing their frustrations. They're like, I really think the helicopters could have gotten in there, and it's like maybe. And then I was like, do you know that we have training weather minimums? Like there was no way I was going to go ahead and abide by my training weather minimums. Hey guys, if this was real world, like here's things that I could have done. And so I went through about 3 or 4 different things that we could have done or had them do. Like, hey, I could have had you move possibly to a closer LZ, but you're on a military facility with live ranges and unexploded ordnance and private property interspersed in there. So like that's not an option for training.
Right, yeah.
But like, hey, like if this was for real, leaving you guys out there is the last option on my list. Here's all these other things that I could have done. But for training, I couldn't do it, and here's why. And so they're like, I never knew that. I never knew you guys had these training weather minimums. Like, and so everyone kind of walked away with a like lesser level of frustration, a greater level of understanding, and it was like, okay, well, I'm confident these guys can come and get me. Like, that's what they're for.
We are all creatures of habit. So when you have that plan of like, all right, we're gonna go out here, we're gonna do this. Yeah, we're gonna have to stay the night, but they're gonna fly in, get us. I'll be home for pizza. But then that doesn't happen because something changes, and like we thrive in our world as well, all of us, but on the plan. And when it doesn't go right, and as much as we say we plan for the unexpected, that's true, but we're still kind of ticked off that we didn't get, that it didn't go, that we didn't get it right.
I always say, if I ever find Murphy in a dark alley with no witnesses, and it's awful, but it's 100% the truth. And I love what you said about, having that conversation and that communication. I think that's what it comes down to, right? Is the communication that comes out of it, and being able to explain the why behind something. I think there's so many things that are just you just have to accept it for what it is, right?
Right.
And that doesn't need to be the case. Like if there's just a little bit of extra communication that goes along with it, a little bit of extra explanation that goes along with it. I'm not looking for a dissertation,
Right.
but, to be able to have that conversation and sitting there saying, this is why, X, Y, or Z was the reasons I couldn't pick you up there. This is why we couldn't move to another location. This is why we couldn't do this. I think it just gives them a little bit more insight, and all of us a little bit more insight into what was the situation surrounding that. And it makes it an opportunity to then also, okay, so when we do this next time, how do we figure this out? And it really allows for those structured conversations to really take place then, which I love that.
Yeah. I think too, Mike, that and maybe I'm thinking outside the box here, but when we have these like tough medical calls, or whatever the call is for a HEMS operation, we have these tough patient outcomes. We rarely ever have any aviation or pilots ever involved in that, right?
Yeah.
But there's also the same time when they're flying, they're hearing everything that's going on. And to just involve that other piece, and they might not know exactly. You do, because you've got EMS.
a little bit. I'm not everything. It's been a hot minute.
He's up there like you should tube that patient like right now.
Your dosages. One of my pilots actually does that. He's like, "Did you guys give the 0.3 of etomidate?" Randy, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. But I just think involving everybody in that aspect, right? Because it promotes that buy-in.
Yeah.
And again, because then you might see for the next time that okay, I don't know exactly what they're doing medically for this patient, but when you hear each other's cues or the lack of cues or something, just a simple, hey, are you guys okay? We're about 15 minutes out from the hospital, just those little things that I think we can, like you said, we can take that away back from each other. So just because you're the pilot, I'm the medic, Mike's the nurse, there's all something that we can take away, and even at the end of that mission, we can learn something from that.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think that we need to have that understanding. I think it's our nature as type A personalities that we always need to understand and control what's in front of us. And when we don't have control of that situation, it really makes things chaotic. It makes us uncomfortable. It doesn't give us the warm and fuzzy feelings. And so with having that why that goes into it, I really feel as though that helps to kind of alleviate a lot of that and understand each other a little bit better. And that's kind of the whole point of a lot of the podcasts that we're doing is how do we break down those barriers of communication and have more open, honest, and real discussions. And I think that this is one of them that just really ties into all of that because we as crew need to do better because I truly hope that we come to a day where we can alleviate any and all risks from going out there. I know we can. I know it's it's a hope and a dream, and it's never going to get there. And I get that. I think we all accept some risk in this. But if we can learn a little something on every single mission we go on, and be able to take that back to the next mission and to our teammates and to literally crews across the world, and make this continually safer from learning from those missions. Rock on.
So yeah, it's great that you brought that up because I always walk away from a flight, and what I've told people is that no matter what, I try to learn something from every time I go out there.
Yeah.
And if I come away from or I walk away from a flight and say I didn't learn anything, then it's probably time to hang things up.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you brought up is those lessons learned, which are so important. But one of the issues I've heard at the safety roundtable last year, and I've seen as well personally, is everyone at that debrief has those lessons learned, but then they don't go anywhere else outside.
It stops.
Right? So how do we go ahead and we spread that around? And there's all kinds of ways of doing it. You could have some sort of an actual written or typed binder there. You could have, some sort of a Slack channel or something like that. If you do that, obviously keeping in mind things that you shouldn't be putting out there. Some sort of, company messaging system if you've got that or website. But there has to be some sort of way of going ahead and making sure that the lessons learned go ahead and spread out there because we all know the telephone game.
Right.
Oh, yes.
Like if it's just word of mouth, like it's just going to morph.
Whisper down the alley never ends well.
And then if those lessons learned don't get spread around, one of the phrases I really liked that I heard once was that mistakes will be repeated, successes may not be repeated.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100% the truth.
Yeah.
I can't deny any of that.
All right, we're done. That's it. You know, I just did training a week ago, and clinical training, our annual clinical training, and one of the clinical educators brought up a really awesome point, and they said, you know, as an industry, from the air medical standpoint, we have done amazing things in the clinical world than the things that we do. But he's like, you know what we have not done well is be part of the flight crew. You know, he goes, when we talk about incidents or we talk about accidents or any emergency, right, that it's aviate, navigate, communicate.
Sure.
Right? So we train, we can run a code like no other, you know, but what happens if there's an incident, you know, and we are still part of a flight crew. And I thought it was amazing how they brought that up. And he said, we suck at doing that part of our job. He's
Not
like,
wrong.
that's still part of our job, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no one cares if you run that code phenomenal, but something happens and you don't get to that final piece of the puzzle, that destination, right? So all of that stuff that we've trained so hard for, suddenly now just it didn't matter. We should have had a point along the way to either recognize that something wasn't happening, or even in the event of emergency that it can easily be unplanned, but just to have the resources and the training. Like, we know what happens when our ventilator stops working. You know, we know what happens when the pump, the tubing is tied in like 27 knots. You know, like those are the things that we fix.
Right.
But if you have an engine overspeed, you know, you lose power to something, like, so what happens next for us? You know what to do.
Right.
But so how do we help you in that process, and how do we train that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And actually yesterday I was able to go ahead and give a brief lecture on like the basics, the very basics of understanding an instrument approach plate. Which, I mean, instrument flying, even for a lot of helicopter pilots, are like, and I get it to an extent. But one of the topics, again, that came up in the safety roundtable last year was just what you said. How do I go ahead and, as a TFO, as a medical flight crew member, someone who's not, you know, rated as a pilot, how do I go ahead and help this other person out in certain situations? And that was one of those things. And over the course of an hour, like, is everyone going to retain everything that I taught yesterday? No, that's impossible. But
Use it or lose it. Right. You know?
Exactly. But I had people come up afterwards and they're like, man, like, I had no idea what this thing was before I walked in here, but like now at least I know, like, oh, here's where to find that kind of information. So if I'm able to go ahead and go through that, in really the teaching part was about like 40 or 45 minutes, and then we had them actually go through and work with each other to find out, hey, here's where this stuff is.
Right.
If I could do that in 40 or 45 minutes, again, if you have a slow day, and I know, you know, things are quiet, things are slow is like the toxic word. Anywhere you go in our sector.
We do not use the Q word.
Don't use the word, but say like, hey guys, you want to take a few minutes and you know, like, we can walk through whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, like they said yesterday in the opening keynote, you know, just you're on your way back. Everything was good. Hey guys, we're gonna go ahead. What's this approach? We're gonna go ahead and say we're gonna have to do an ILS. Just knowing your minimum safe altitude and your heading. To get you going that direction could buy enough time for you to make the call that you need to for a double IMC. You know, and that just gives you the extra level of comfort and that stress relief.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that learning has to, I mean, not everybody likes teaching, right? Not everybody likes learning something new every time they come in. We have to, as an industry, continue to push ourselves forward like that and welcome that. I don't know how to change certain cultures when it comes to some of those things, and I hope that we can continue to improve upon those cultures. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's got to be something that, you know, you do on a regular basis. Like, I'm very thankful that we're returning to base and my pilots are often like, yeah, we're going to go shoot an approach. And a lot of times they talk me through that process, and it's just that little bit of communication. And each time, you know, I'll get to pick up something a little bit more on each of those, or be able to ask about a particular instrument or, you know, what they're seeing right now, or why they're, you know, how they're looking at adjusting the controls and showing me like, how I'm looking for where the minimums are and what's our decision point and all of that stuff, even when things go great, so that I understand what happens when things are going wrong.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the best way I found to go ahead and teach people who aren't enthusiastic about a particular subject, like there's this type of sortie we have to do a certain amount of times in the 60 for the Air Force called AHC, or aircraft handling characteristics. We've had,
that
especially
sounds kind of mundane just right off the top. I can only imagine.
It's actually quite the opposite.
Oh, okay.
You're taking the aircraft in some cases too close to its limits. And so you're exploring like basically energy management, different ways you can max perform the aircraft without overperforming the aircraft, or else you're doing demonstrations. In some cases, be like, hey guys, this is not what we want to do.
Okay, I was thinking you were like ground handling, like how to maneuver. Okay. I was just like,
no. But we have, and I understand because after you ride in the back a few times and you have no access to controls on some of these sorties, you're like, this isn't fun. So some of our SMAs in the back are not terribly enthusiastic about doing AHC. And again, I get it.
Yeah.
But there have been some times where if I can go ahead and actually apply it and say like, hey, here's where this is applicable, or here's where we might use these, learning points, or just this actual maneuver. And it's like, oh, okay, I may not enjoy this.
Yeah.
But it's probably good for us to see or practice, at least a couple times.
And to kind of feel like what's going on.
Yep. Yeah.
No doubt. And I do love having that kind of education coming from my pilots. I think from the aviation side of the house, aviation is always something that I have been obsessed with, since I've been a little kid. And now that I'm, been flying for almost 14 years now, it's still an obsession of mine. And I love learning new things when I'm up there. Just like, let's not do it at, 1850 when we go home at 1900.
Yeah. There's a time and a place for everything.
Right.
And if you had a really busy day, like Ben's up the time to at 0430, like, hey guys, I'm going to do an ILS. So like, no, just get us on the ground, please.
No.
But at the same time, I'm also one that preaches, whenever I have orientees that there's no bad time for learning. So I guess I have to take a little spoonful of my own medicine there and just roll with the punches.
Yep.
But I do enjoy learning all of those things. And I hope that there are med crews that are actively engaged on a daily basis trying to help out from the aviation side of the house. You guys can't help us with the intubation.
Nope.
You can't help us with the drips. You can't help us with the ventilator management. But there are plenty of other things that you guys can do if you're coming into the hospital to help set us up for success.
Yeah,
the
sure.
little things that, and we need to be doing the same vice versa.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, having those debriefs and being able to learn a little bit in that situation about each other's roles and talk through all of that, I think is something that's extremely important. And when we talk about those, briefs or the debriefs more specifically, do you feel as though they should be something that are more structured, or should it just kind of be more of a free flow thing? And if you are on the structured side of the house, what would that look like to you?
I think I'm going to throw one of my favorite instructor answers out there, which is it depends. But I mean, it does. Like, if people hate that answer, like, you're dodging.
Yeah, nobody likes that answer.
It actually does depend in a lot of cases. But so again, if you've got a relatively benign flight or call, then that's where it can probably be a little more of that free-flowing kind of, hey, does anyone have anything from this? The first thing we always talk about in any sort of debrief is like, hey, were there any safety of flight issues or like near misses that we had? Because obviously that's the first thing you want to get out of the way.
Right.
And then you don't need to go ahead and like, okay, so like we got the call, we went to the aircraft. That's how our debriefing guide used to flow in our community, and I despised it. Now there's like this mission reconstruction phase, but it's more of like, hey, like let's look at a couple of significant events that happened. And it doesn't need to be bad. Like we said, it could be a good thing. Or like, hey, this went really well today. Why did it go really well? So I would say for something where you've got a lot of people involved, I think structured is definitely the way to go, and have one person running it. This way it kind of stays on track and keeps everyone involved. But again, if it's a small group who kind of all know each other, that's where things can be a little more benign.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that, so I have one of my pilots that tries to keep things very structured in terms of what that debrief looks like. And I like the process that he goes through in terms of, discussing when we all meet at the aircraft after a flight, of saying, any operational concerns, yes or no, any aviation concerns, any communication issues, any medical issues, and we kind of go through this, structured process. But I think we're always looking for issues, right? So why are we also not celebrating those successes?
Right,
and I
right.
think that, we do have those conversations. Like when we have those debriefs, we have those conversations that are like, I really appreciated when you did this, this, and this. That was a really good catch on X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
But I don't think that we do enough of that. I feel like we need to do more, because I think those are the opportunities that we can sometimes even learn more from in those situations.
I agree. I think that if we can highlight those, that lets you know, like you said, the successes may not be repeated.
Yeah.
But at that same time, like knowing that was a good thing to do.
Yeah.
It just, you've got that buy-in, and you're like, we were all good on this mission, and we're back home safe.
Yep.
And we're ready for the next one.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the whole goal of all of this, is just, we want to make it home safe. We want to get our patients where they need to go, and we want to be ready for that next person that we can go out and help.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
When we talk about doing these debriefs or pre-mission briefings, whatever it is. So for missions that go according to plan, how do we differentiate, no, let me rephrase that.
This is the depends answer again.
I think that's probably where this is going to go.
I'm ready for it.
It's already there. We've answered the question, right? So whether it's a pre-mission brief or a post-mission debrief, right? How do we organize that conversation for where the things go according to plan, or as opposed to things that maybe don't go according to plan? How do we keep that to where, like, everybody's on that same page? They're welcoming that feedback. But, like, how can we keep it to where nobody feels like it's blame or anything like that? How can we have those differences in those debriefs, and how can we make sure that everybody is just fully committed to that part of it?
When every second counts, trust Night Flight Concepts to keep you mission ready. With advanced night vision technology, FAA-certified repair services, and expert training, we've got your six. Visit nightflightconcepts.com to learn more.
Yeah, so great question. I'm going to go with, I'm not going to say it depends. All right. But again,
I was bracing myself for this time. That may have been to push the table across at you, but
some of the key ground rules, again, like there's no rank, in the debrief. One of the other important things is that, like, hey, like, if you know that you messed something up, just go ahead and own it.
Own it.
Yeah. Just go ahead and say,
100%.
like, hey, you know what?
Absolutely.
Like, I could have done better at this today, and, like, here's what I'm going to go ahead and do next time. Because, like, that's the part that gets missed a whole bunch. It's not like, I didn't do that well today. I'll do better next time. Cool. How are we going to do better next time?
right.
Yeah.
Right? So you can say I'm going to do better all you want, but, like, how are you going to fix that? And a lot of times our DFPs, or debrief focus points, as we call them, for those, like, significant events, we phrase them in the form of a question. Sure. So, like, hey, why did X happen? And then we go ahead and we list out, like, well, here's all these things that I think led up to that, or a contributing factor, as it were, to this. And then from those, you go ahead and you pick one out that says, like, well, this is the one that kind of started us down this path. This is the root cause.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and for each one of those things, depends, like, again, how much time you have and stuff like that. But for at least that root cause, go ahead and say, well, this is the fix for it if things didn't go well, or, like, if there is a lesson learned from it, whether it's good or bad. Like, again, the DFP could be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, hey, like, why did this go really, really well today? Like, why were we able to pick the survivor up so quickly today? Like, well, gosh, like, all these things went really well. Cool. So, like, we should remember this for next time, that we should strive for the same kind of performance or the same sequence of events.
I want to touch back to what you just said, if there's time. We should have that time when we get back to make sure that we have this debrief.
We should,
but that's the thing, is there's always such a push. I got to get my chart done. I got to get this restocked.
Or
we got to get the aircraft.
Or you're going right
refueled.
on the next mission.
Yeah.
Right there. Hey, this one's been holding, But if there is something that we do need to talk about, we should be afforded the ability to have that conversation right then. And I'm sorry, it's time out. We got to have this conversation to make sure, so that way we can go out on this next one. And this industry, it's not really planned, So with that in mind, to really take that time out and not feel pressured. Like, we should be celebrating and endorsing that. Like, we should be able to have that time out and really have that conversation.
And the other thing that I really liked that you said was the personal accountability side of things, right? Like, I want to have that open and honest conversation, and if I mess something up, I want to be the one to identify that was a problem and make sure that I'm not doing that in the future. And my respect for someone who has the ability to have that humility and self-reflection of saying, I messed this up, and figuring out how they're going to not do it again in the future. That to me speaks volumes so much more about their character as a person and their ability to continue to do this job safely than somebody who's going to make up excuses for it the whole time.
Yeah,
right?
there was when I was going through instructor upgrade, they sent me for part of it out to the Air Force Weapons School out in Nellis. The HH-60 squadron that was out there only had one student going through at that time, and this guy was just getting crushed. The course is like relentless, and so the squadron commander at the time out there was like, "Hey, if you've got people across the fleet or in the community who are going through upgrades, send them here." So I went out there for part of my instructor upgrade, and it was really interesting. It wasn't a mission I was on, but I sat in the debrief for it because they encourage you, like, hey, you're going to learn stuff. Just go ahead and sit in other people's debriefs or briefings. I believe he was the commandant, I believe, of the weapons school. So this guy's in charge of all the squadrons that essentially, like, for lack of a better word or not to go into too much detail, like Air Force Top Gun.
Right.
But better. Because it's the Air Force.
Nice.
I'm going to get hate from Navy guys for that.
It's all good. It's all good.
Shots fired.
Haters going to hate.
But here's a guy who's in charge of this whole school, and he was flying, obviously, with an H-60 instructor pilot because he's not a qualified H-60 pilot. But there he is in a debrief, and they're talking about, like, hey, like, why did this iteration of this event, like, not go great? Like, let's walk through that. And he's like, yep, that was me. Here's this full bird colonel. He's got, however many thousands of hours, who knows how much experience. Yeah. And he's just like, yep, I goofed that up. Like, that's me. And it's like, that's cool.
Yeah,
like
exactly. I just have so much more respect in that situation and being able to have that humility and self-reflection. And even when somebody points that out for you, to have the ability to receive that criticism, I think that speaks volumes about people in general. And that's where I feel comfortable. I know that when I get on that aircraft with that person the very next time and they're accountable for their actions and I'm going to be accountable for my actions, I know that we are going to be a safe crew, as safe as possible in that situation.
Absolutely.
So I enjoy that aspect of it. But I think that's part of a culture, right? Like that is, I think in general, a culture in this industry that is pretty well fostered. But I think that we can still do better. And so from your experience, how much does culture play into making these kind of conversations effective ones? And if it's somewhere that maybe doesn't have the best culture to make sure that these are done every time, where do they start? Like, what's the expectation? How do they foster that in a better way?
It's interesting because I've seen the culture of the organizations I've been assigned to go through those ebbs and flows, and we're in a good spot right now, and I think across the community as well, as far as I can tell. But it is very much a cultural shift to go ahead and have that taking accountability, and then as the keynote speaker said the other day, not necessarily like directly calling a person out, but identifying when things go wrong and how to fix it. It kind of starts at the top in my perspective. So it starts there, but to maintain it, the folks down on the line need to go ahead and do that as well. But it sure helps if you've got your leadership at whatever level going ahead and doing the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
So that the new, flight engineer, for our community in the back, like 2 or 3 striper, right out of training, or the new, medic on a crew, if they go ahead and they see, that senior person who they look up to, be like, yeah, that was me, I messed that up.
Yeah.
They're going to feel
they get that, and they're
safe.
like, well, you know what? Like, I'm comfortable because this other person went ahead and did this, so, like, I'm going to feel more comfortable saying, like, yeah, I messed that up.
And I think that really ties in, like, when you can, like, it's one thing to, like, say that these things are there, but to see somebody do that, like, leading from the front and being like, yeah, man, like, I own that. And I just want to take it back to the points that they put up on the board about, like, what you should be looking for when you hire somebody. And he said it was somebody that takes ownership, you lose your ego, you keep it simple, stay focused, and empower your team. Like all those qualities,
100%.
those are the things that we should be looking for.
Those are the people I want to work for and work with.
And I think what he said was like, don't be afraid to abort.
Yeah.
Like we are so afraid to, when things or somebody, part of that team is not holding that up. And I don't think the message is that you just instantly cut that person out.
Yeah.
You know, it's have we identified the steps and the processes to have that person correct what they're missing.
Yep.
But if it's still not continuing to work out and you've given everything, then we should be, I'm sorry, this just isn't for you.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's one of the things I've also appreciated about ECHO and kind of the general attitude, if you will, here. And right from the get-go, it was leave your egos at the door.
Yeah.
I don't care what kind of flight suit you wear. I don't care, what program you fly at. I don't care how big or small your helicopter is. All I care about is that we come together as crew and we make this better.
Right.
And I'm hoping that type of attitude is really, I do feel like in the time that I've been in HEMS, that there has been significant improvement in all of that. I think that we're moving in that right direction. As you said before, things like this are going to ebb and flow, and I think it depends on where we get our providers from. But we need to make sure that we're looking for the right providers for those roles.
Yeah, absolutely.
And foster that from the ground up. I think one of the things that I was like the most surprised about when I started in aviation, I was like, man, everybody seems like so nice to each other. Like they're talking to ATC and it seems like everybody's, having this jovial conversation back and forth. Like, it's very matter of fact, but everybody's like polite and nice with each other. And then it was translated to even the med crew, and then between the med crew and the aviation side of the house, like all of these people were like, man, do they actually like each other, or is this just? I was like, I like this culture, and I think that we've certainly grown a lot from there and continued to grow, and I hope that we do. But culture is, I think, one of the most difficult parts of this, because that's
Absolutely.
it's that whole mindset that is going to challenge you to do this each and every time and be disciplined enough to make sure that you're taking something out of both the positive and the negative experiences, and that you have that self-reflection too.
Yeah, absolutely. It is key on the organization, and it's incumbent upon the leadership there at all levels to go ahead and demonstrate that culture. You can put out however many emails, policy letters, squadron commander read files, whatever you want to do, saying like, this is how things are going to work. If you don't go ahead and whatever leadership position you're in, go ahead and live that out and demonstrate it to people, which is, like live it out is like such a buzz phrase. But still, like if you don't go ahead and demonstrate to your people that like, hey, I have said this, or the organization has set these priorities, and like I am showing you that I'm doing that as well.
Right. And I'll tell you where this culture starts is right here. Yeah. 555 people registered and came to this conference. And if we have 555 providers, pilots, everybody part of staff, and we all take that back to our organizations, and we just keep making that change. The biggest eye-opening thing this morning was Terry Miauchi's presentation about, look at the 90% of all these incidents were human factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Obviously we're all human, but there was a human decision-making process. It wasn't the machine.
I feel like that's often, though, always the catch-all, but I do think that there's certainly some validity in his
Absolutely,
point.
Right.
And we need to make sure that we're keeping that discipline in check throughout every aspect of our missions to keep us safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was great. Well, I think this has been an incredible conversation to have. We've definitely solved, I think, a lot of the world's problems today. and just
hopefully we'll continue to solve them.
In just under an hour. So, Sean, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with us and getting your message out there. I've already got notes
Awesome.
to take back.
Yeah,
so.
I think a lot of it is contagious. I think that if all of us continue to push this forward and make sure that we're having those open, honest, and real briefs and debriefs that are relevant for our crews, I think that we will continue to see that safety margin continually increase and increase and increase further. And I hope that you guys all of our listeners are employing that at their particular programs and continuing to push that forward. And if it's something that you need help building that culture We can certainly do the best we can to try to help that. As Blake said, we got 555 people that are hopefully taking that culture right back to their programs and building that up with that enthusiasm. But certainly can reach out to us, and we'll certainly help you in any way that we can. We've got an amazing safety team. Thank you, Sean, for being part of that.
Blake, thanks for the invitation. Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. If you guys have not checked out our friends over at verticalhelicast.com, make sure you head on over there and check out the Hangar Z podcast, Helicopter podcast, Real Rescue podcast, Vertical MRO, some other awesome people out there, and great podcasts with great discussions all about aviation. So
I got to get back to Jason Quinn. That guy emailed me months ago and just kind of like so many other things. Well, and I'm like,
so does that mean we should reach out to him and say, hey, guess who we got on our podcast before you?
Yeah.
Let's send him a selfie real quick.
You got me in person. There's no way I was going to be able to do anything about it.
We did kind of have you trapped
here.
Sean
Army. Yeah, he couldn't say no.
Well, thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Sean,
you, guys.
It's been a great discussion.
Awesome.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Valor Flight Crew podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors. When every second counts, trust Night Flight Concepts to keep you mission ready. With advanced night vision technology, FAA-certified repair services, and expert training, we've got your six. Visit nightflightconcepts.com to learn more.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Thanks for tuning in to the Valor Flight Crew podcast, presented by Vertical Helicasts and Vertical Valor magazine in partnership with ECHO. A big thank you to our guest, Sean Gavin, for sharing his experience and perspective on the importance of effective briefs, debriefs, and building a culture of accountability. Remember, there's no rank in the debrief, and every mission is a chance to learn, grow, and make the next one safer. Humility isn't a weakness, it's a foundation of trust. The moment we drop our ego, we start building better, safer crews. We all can make a difference each and every day, and it shows in the amazing work we do. To all our listeners, thanks for joining us for this conversation and your continued support of the Vertical Helicast platform. Whether you're part of a flight crew or just passionate about the world of air medical transport, we hope you found some takeaways to apply on your next shift. If you haven't already, head over to www.echoflightcrew.org to learn more about the teams and programs that support this community, and be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Valor Flight Crew podcast, where we continue to highlight the people and stories that make this industry great.